In today's video, we're going to be taking a big look at the upcoming pattern because there's a whole lot to talk about and more indication of a big pattern change later on. Even looking now at the current conditions, we can see a very, very beautiful, in my opinion, snapshot at the current conditions. A very well-defined cold front here across the middle of the United States with a kind of defined low there as well in the middle of things. And we also have a primary low up top. So we have multiple factors going on over there. Some high pressure along the eastern seaboard here, so no surprise things are drier out there. And then there is some storminess here across the Rockies and northwest of the United States. Let's first off primarily focus in on these areas. Here we can see Oregon and Washington seeing plenty of rainfall and showers, moderate to heavy at times as well, heading into Washington and Oregon here. Snowfall for the Cascades also for the very highest of the elevations as well out here. As we take a look a little bit further eastward here towards the Rockies, we can see from Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming, there is some sporadic snow showers taking place, especially across the mountaintops, obviously, for these very northern Rocky regions out there. As we head a little bit further south, we can also see some of the middle Rockies, is what I'd call them, around Salt Lake City here, are seeing some of this snowfall and rainfall depending on your elevation there as well. And then further south than that, we're not really seeing anything for the southern Rockies. Here on this low and cold front, we'll start with the very northern areas here, but we can see some lighter to moderate showers here moving northward along this cold front, which is a pretty typical feature of a cold front that's stalling out, which is basically what we're seeing at this point. As we can see, there's pretty obviously a low here circulating. So we're seeing this cold front kind of stretch just like this, a low pressure system here, and then we're seeing another cold front extending off of this to the south. So it's a pretty interesting feature. Definitely going to lead towards some interesting impacts as well. The southern extent is moving much quicker than the northern extent, and also the southern extent is featuring a much stronger line of storms here, moving across the states of Missouri, Arkansas, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and even in through Mississippi here as well. We're seeing these heavier showers moving through. Definitely some thunderstorms as well here along the very eastern extent there of the state of Mississippi, heading into western Alabama probably just a little bit later on this afternoon. As we can see, also this is extending all the way southward down through southern Mississippi into portions of New Orleans and other areas there in Louisiana. We can see to the east of this, we have some thunderstorms heading northward through into the kind of Gulf states here, the Gulf regions of Florida and Alabama. Pretty typical stuff here when we see this type of storminess occurring. There is a little bit of showers, very, very light showers heading through where these high pressure systems are located, but this is very isolated and very, very light precipitation. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on. We're going to see how this is going to progress through the upcoming pattern, and we're also going to deep dive into that big pattern change that I do expect to happen a little bit later on. Now, here we are focusing in on the upcoming pattern. We can see this cold front here. There's no missing it, really. That was a little bit earlier this morning. This is as we're reaching this evening. We can see that secondary low, which is now kind of transitioning to the primary low, actually, is located more over Illinois. We can see this cold front underneath it here. Also, this cold front to the north of it as well. Usually that would be a warm front. I think this will probably switch to a warm front as it's progressing. We'll see the cold air swinging underneath just like this. This seems to be a lot more of what we will be seeing later on, but that might not be the case, although I really think it will be. This will move up into Michigan here. This cold front will extend further underneath, and then whatever kind of frontal boundary this is will be kind of progressing northward. Usually cold fronts don't progress in that direction, but it kind of is here. We see more and more of this showery activity heading into New England out ahead of things, which is, again, a pretty typical occurrence here out ahead of cold fronts. We can see plenty of snowfall. This is going to be later tonight. In through Oregon, Washington, Canada, for sure up there, we're seeing plenty of this type of storminess. As we reach into Thursday, which will be October 27th, we do see some of this snow diving into the southern Rockies. Some storminess up here in British Columbia, but really outside of that, we're not seeing too much in terms of precipitation. By Friday, October 28th, we're seeing some storminess down here in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, as well as Oklahoma there. That has dived down into these regions. We also see some of this for the Northwest still happening. by Saturday, we see this kind of extending northward here. So there is some flow in this direction here happening. So definitely we could see this expand. We're also seeing the northwest precipitation expanding, but overall quieter as we're approaching the weekend. Sunday here, we're seeing a little bit more of this precipitation expanding through the Ohio Valley, the Gulf states, some of the southeast states as well, seeing this now. So definitely more and more areas seeing this. This storm is becoming more and more major for the Northwest and British Columbia. By Monday, which will be Halloween Day, this is kind of the evening time, we will have some showers around for these regions. So definitely spotty precipitation there on Halloween night. Also for the Northwest, weather won't be too good either, with some snowfall for higher elevations there, rainfall for the lower elevations as a more major storm system is moving in. It does appear now that for Halloween evening, the kind of middle portions of the country here are going to have the best conditions. So areas throughout these regions, also the Southwest, which isn't a huge surprise either, seeing some nicer conditions at least. We see another trough moving in alongside this major storm here, so some snowfall occurring, definitely reaching its way further eastward than what we've seen typically. We see South Dakota here, Minnesota, Wisconsin seeing some snowfall, so definitely getting some of that further east snowfall by Wednesday, October, or better yet, November 2nd here. By the time we're reaching into Thursday, November 3rd, we can see a cold front developing here, and definitely some Arctic air trying to move eastward. So this is when I think that potential pattern change will be occurring. Also notice from the Rockies all the way up through British Columbia, we're seeing major snowfall by this point around Thursday, Friday timeframe. That's the 3rd and 4th of November. But definitely this cold air is progressing by the end of this model run towards at least the central United States, and with this cold front still advancing, you can bet that it will eventually bring that Arctic blast into the eastern United States once this cold front passes. Now, what this snowstorm does as that occurs is going to be pretty interesting to see if it can move along this jet stream, maybe bringing some of the first major snowfall somewhere in here. That wouldn't surprise me either, but take it with a grain of salt because this is 10 days out, but that seems to be what I would expect to occur to some extent. Which again would be very interesting for this time of year, but not unheard of. Now, as far as total precipitation here, we can see in the whites practically no precipitation over the next 10 days. Your grays will be about 1/10 of an inch or less of precipitation. Your greens being 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows 1 inch to 2 inches. Your reds 2 to 5 inches, and then your browns 5 to 10 inches of precipitation. We also see some blues there up there in Washington State, which will be 10 to 15 inches of precipitation over the next 10 days. Obviously, a whole lot. Now, total snowfall here. Anywhere in the grays, we're seeing a dusting, if anything. Your blues will be 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purple, 6 to 10. Pinks, 10 to 20. Pastel blues, like we're seeing in the Rockies there, 20 to 30. And then pastel purples, like we're seeing in Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia there. We will be seeing potentially 30 to 48 inches plus. I can confirm somewhere is seeing 190 inches of snowfall according to this model. Obviously a ton. Somewhere up there in British Columbia where we see those pastel pinks basically maxed out here, because our color table, if you look at the bottom of the screen, only goes up to 48 inches. So it turns that solid pink, and anything above 48 will show up as that pink. So somewhere in here or somewhere in here is where we're seeing 190.4 inches according to this model. Obviously, just an unbelievable amount of snowfall. You can't even imagine it. Now, as far as the upcoming temperature pattern, we'll take a look at it, but we can see we're obviously fully engaged in a big trough in the west. We're finally seeing this ridge that we've been calling for in the east. Here, a bit of a cold front in the middle, obviously. We will see things cool down a bit. As this cold front progresses, we see some cold air able to make its way in to a lot of the eastern United States as we're approaching this weekend. This will be mostly Friday through Saturday timeframe. We still have the deeper Arctic air here for the Rockies. So both sides of the spectrum here seeing some snowfall, or not snowfall, colder air. We see by Saturday this cold is kind of already dying down. We see that this is pretty mild cold air out west. But what we're going to see is the warm gets reinforced into the east. This is by Wednesday, October 2nd, by the way. November 2nd, I keep saying October. Bear with me as we transition to November. I will eventually get used to saying November instead of October. We can see that there is major Arctic air now heading back into the western United States by this point. But what we're going to see happen is this does start to move eastward with that cold front. So we're seeing it more centered like this now, and we have reason to suspect that this will be on the move to the east with that cold front. And then this warm could build back into the west here, building a positive PNA. But for now, at least over the next 10 days, we do not see a positive PNA showing up. So we don't really have a date to put on that. But eventually we will head back into a positive PNA. It's kind of a bigger question mark of when that will eventually occur. Anyway, we will be updating you guys on this pattern every single day, as always, as we do upload every single day. So be sure to subscribe for those videos to pop up in your subscription box daily. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.